Okay. No question. There's no question that can't be answered. So
Yeah, you say that. You say
don't
that.
worry about that.
No, you're all good. Take your time.
Just hope I don't cry.
No cries.
This could be your first one.
I'll cry after a few minutes.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Pair Pod. Thank you for the support on the last episode. Apologies for the little break in posting there. We've solved all those issues, and we are deep into season 4, all the way up until the end of Christmas. Today, I'm joined by the founder of Fight Connect TV, host of the First Exchange podcast, Lydia The That's it, isn't it?
Bravo.
Thank you very much. Now, first and foremost, you messaged me and you were like, I saw a few of your TikToks online.
Yeah.
We don't get a lot of shares over here on the Pair Pod. We don't get a lot of I guess we like, it's mad to hear that people are seeing like the stuff you do.
You've loads of views. One of your videos is like 250,000 or something.
I don't know about all that.
Okay, that's good views.
Did you see is it the Marcus Sweeney one? That's not even, I'm not in it. I'm not even in it. It's just him.
I was down in Marcus Sweeney rabbit hole and I found the podcast.
It's a hell of a hole. It's a hell of a place. No, it's nice. Like that one completely took off. I'm kind of in like a, do you know what happened with that podcast?
No, not at all.
Well, we'll start this very quickly.
I'm very interested to hear about how you got him on your podcast.
Oh, that wasn't the hard part. Simo, who I had on before, I don't know, he hosts the Hard Chats and Hard Hats podcast with another bloke. And he rang Marcus Sweeney during my podcast and he was like, you should come on the Pair Pod. And he kind of started it. And then we did the podcast, and the person, I don't know if it won't go into everything, but someone that Marcus was like calling out in the podcast reported it. And it got taken down in Ireland. But it got 1,000 views in like 2 days, which is like unbelievable for me.
Wow. Okay,
So
I think I know who that person might be.
So do I. She may have followed
Allegedly.
me on Twitter the day before I went out, and I was like,
Well, I hope she doesn't take this podcast down. I'm not going to say anything that will
no,
warrant
all very
getting taken
positive.
down.
All very positive over here.
Great.
Okay, so starting off, I actually listened to a bunch of your podcasts this week just to kind of get a gauge of like what kind of vibe the podcast would be.
Yeah.
And like immediately I was like, oh, this is very chill. Like you're very, I guess, you're very bubbly on camera, which I think is really nice. I think it puts the guest in a very like comfortable position. When you were growing up, where did you grow up? What was it? What was
Waterford.
Like in Waterford?
Yeah. I grew up in Waterford, and then I moved to Dublin when I was about 19, I think. Yeah. Just on a whim, I had a friend who was like, "Oh, I'm moving to Dublin for college, and I've got like a twin room, like 300 quid a month. Do you want to jump on this?" I was
It wasn't recently anyway.
It was definitely not recently, and it was like this massive, big 6-bedroom house in Terranure, just by the KCR.
Lovely.
If anyone knows Dublin. So it was a huge big house, massive big front and back garden. And I came up and I got a job in Terra Records.
Oh, sick.
Yeah,
okay,
the
nice.
original Terra Records, and not the one that's on Nassau Street, I think. But and that was just the most insane, brilliant, like growing, learning period. It was the most fun job.
What year, like approximately, like as in what stage of music was music in? Was it like CDs now coming in, or was records still like very popular?
Yeah, it was CDs. CDs are the main, but like we obviously did have a big vinyl section, but vinyl was kind of, there was people who would come in looking for vinyl that were sort of like old school heads that like wanted to keep it real, like old school, but that sort of resurgence of vinyl was starting to like creep in afterwards. But it was more to do with like there was about like 20 or 30 people working there, and it was all a bunch of like really cool like people from all different cultures, all different backgrounds, all different countries, but they were all into music, they were all playing music, so we had this like really cool group of people,
Enjoyed going to work.
Loved going to work.
That's such a nice feeling when you have like a bunch, you going into work, you're like hung over to bits, you're like, it's the lads. And you check the roster and you're like, unbelievable.
It was literally that buzz. All the management was so cool. And it was just because everyone was so into music and just like, just the conversations and the fun. And we used to all hang out together after work. We'd all go for pints. We'd all on sesh together. We'd all roll into work at the same time, no sleep, it was a really, really cool time period. And I met some really amazing people who are still my really good friends now today. So it was awesome.
Is that how the band got started?
Is that how the band got started? No, I started a band in Waterford, like, those crap bands, but they're not actually crap because they lead you somewhere. But it was like, playing cover versions in like some crappy industrial estate, like room that's flooded and there's rats running through it, and you're like, you know, doing covers of Green Day and the Distillers and Rancid and stuff.
Yeah,
and
Jesus.
you know, I was like, oh, I'm gonna be a rock and roll star. And you know, the guys who were in the band were just wanted to be you know, playing a few tunes in the pub on a Saturday night, and I had just known that I don't know if I knew I was like destined for great things, but I just knew that I wanted more and there was more life and opportunity out there. So I kind of canned it. I had moved to London for a year. It was a disaster. I'd come home and then I got the offer with my friend to go to Dublin. So music kind of wasn't really in the forefront of my mind. I knew I loved music and I wanted to be around music, but being in the band wasn't really my thing anymore. I was just happy and content to be in Terra Records.
It's mad to think that like you had, like there must have been a period there, because I listened to an interview you were talking about that, like there was a period of success there where you were like touring, or at least like you were living as a professional musician. During that period were you like, oh, this is exactly what I want to do? Or did you kind of through living it be like, I don't know if this is for me?
I probably had there was moments where I was like, I'm never letting this go. This is the dream. And then there was a large chunk of it where I was just absolutely miserable and so unhappy, but that wasn't to do with music and it wasn't to do with anything else. It was because of who I was at that time, and you know, I was just very lost. And then you're in a dysfunctional family with people who are also lost and who are also unable to communicate, and you're so passionate about this music and this band that it creates this monster where everything else just sort of, you know, falls to pieces, and you just are so passionate about making it work. Were
you all friends like before it started? Was it one of those, or did you kind of come together as a group?
No, Daniel, that was the lead song. Well, it was the songwriter and the lead guitarist, and you know, towards the end was the co-vocalist. We dated, like we went out. That's how we met.
That's got to be dangerous, like.
Well, I mean, I'm testament to it.
Rock and roll, baby. It's rock and roll.
But we met at a party. You know, he was just like, I remember it like clear as day. We were at this like party. We went to an early house. Can't remember the name of it. It's on the Keys. It's still open. But we were at this early house, and he was just like, do you sing? Do you sing? And I was like, no, I don't sing. I work in Terra Records. I was like, I work in Terra Records. And he was like, you know, you should be in a band. You look really, really cool. And I had like bleached blonde hair. I was very, okay. It was an awful time period for like fashion wise, but it was cool. And yeah, we basically started dating, and he would not let me alone. He's like, I have this song, you need to sing on it. And I was like, I can't sing. And he used to say all the 60s, all the greats, they had like female vocalists, and most of them couldn't sing. You know, it was like the spoken word kind of. And but then I climbed into my wardrobe in my bedroom and I cut a vocal. I can't even remember the name of the song now, but it was really good. And he helped me build my confidence. And then I realized that, oh, actually I can sing. And yeah, it was like a really, really fun journey for the next couple of years.
I've had the podcast before this, I had Aaron Rowe on, who was he's like basically doing like, he's a musician, but he's doing it in kind of pubs and stuff right now, and like small gigs during the week.
Okay.
And I was kind of like, I was kind of blown away. He was like, I don't really want it to get any more than this. He's like, this is kind of like the best. He's like, I go and I get to perform and people like me, and some people like, I might get stopped every now and again. Some might be like, you Aaron Rowe. And he was like, any more than that, I wouldn't be interested at all. Yeah. And then we talked about the Lewis Capaldi documentary that came out. Did you see that?
I saw that clip actually. Yeah.
And then, we're all over it, folks. We're all over it. And he talked about that, and I was kind of like, it's mad to see how many people kind of get like chewed up and left the other side of like the music industry and stuff.
It's definitely like, you know, I feel like there was so much that we could have achieved if we had all had our heads screwed on and we had the right people behind us. And you really just get a sense of like, it's such a like chaotic industry to be anywhere near, you know, and you really have to be so level-headed and so protected for it to work properly. And unfortunately, we had no clue. And I remember we used to sit at home and watch the Stone Roses documentary, the whole lot of us, because Rory, our bass player, was Daniel's brother. So there was a period where I lived in their like family home while we were like trying to make it. You know, I'm so grateful to their parents because they were so kind to let me live with them. But I remember we used to watch the Stone Roses documentary where like Ian Brown is talking about signing that contract and like all the hell that they went through to try and get their money back. And we sit there going like, God, how could you be so stupid? And then you find yourself in situations where you're like, man, I see how easily it happens.
I don't think that many people consistently are that stupid. I think people start to realize it's kind of the system.
Yeah,
and like the way 100%. It works out.
Yeah. But it makes sense, you know, it's like, all right, someone puts up like X amount of money for you to go spend 6 months making this incredible album at this like 5-star like whatever with this like, you know, Grammy award winning producer, and you don't think you have to pay that back, you know, in some way. Like everything is a cost. Everything costs everything. That's what I've learned, you know, sadly in business is like no matter how big the vision is for that investor, they're not going to invest money unless they can get it back tenfold.
100%. And like, how on earth, like switching a little bit, how do we get to combat sports from there? So
the band obviously self-imploded, like total Fleetwood
Mac. Still a reunion tour in there.
Do you know what? I actually think
there's a run there.
Definitely. I've thought about it, you know, like I remember a couple of years ago, I actually reached out to Rory and I was like, what do you think about a comeback tour? Like it was 10 years since our debut album had come out. I was like, we owe this music, which is so great. We owe it to just have our shit together and just do it again and do it properly, level-headed, and just like go out and do it the way we like were meant to do it. And he was just like, no, like the leads, like his brother, the kind of other duo, the half of the whole face of the band, he's like, there's not a chance in hell he would even stand on the same stage as you. And I was like, okay, well that's sad, but it's, you know.
I've been known to hold a tune.
We want to go out on the road and like.
I've been in a couple of musicals, so it's.
Oh, okay, right, okay.
They don't want to hear about that again.
That falsetto, huh?
Yeah. Range. So how, like, where does this start? I saw that you did Jiu Jitsu, and you're obviously like for a long period now been doing Jiu Jitsu. Was that like your first intro into it?
Yeah. Well, what happened was the band ended. I had a nervous breakdown. I was in a terrible relationship. I thought that music was kind of like what I wanted to do, and then I couldn't even listen to music anymore. That's how bad the relationship had been with the end of the band. And I was out one night. Really drunk, and my best friend's now fiance was like, you know, every time I'm with you and you're drunk, you always like wrestle me. He was like, you need to do jiu-jitsu. He's a judo black belt. And he's like, you need to go to jiu-jitsu. And I was like, I don't go to the gym. You know, I'm a musician. Like, there's no way I don't exercise. And he was like, I
smoke cigarettes.
Yeah, and a lot of like Marlboro Red. Like that was my like vice. So he was like, you need to come to my judo gym and I'll teach you the basics and then see how you get on. So I don't know like why I did, but I did. I went for a couple of weeks to his gym. He showed me a few basic things. He had a white kimono on, which is like the suit that you wear in judo. And we were training and I had makeup on and it was pure white, and he had a class afterwards. And I remember he was like, oh my lady, are you wearing makeup? And I was like, of course I am. And he's like, you don't wear makeup doing judo. Like that's how much I did not know about the sport. And then he was like, you need to go to East Coast Jiu-Jitsu Academy. It's run by this guy called Dara O'Connell. Do you know it? Yeah. So I went, okay. And I got to the gym on a Saturday for the beginners class. And like, I paced the road for I was late. Like I was pacing the road going like, I can't do this. No way. And then it was like 20 minutes and I was, fuck it, I'll just go in. And I went in, and then Chris Leddy, who's a black belt coach there as well. He's coach of East Coast Bray now. But he was like, yeah, just get in the mats. You're late. Got in the mats, and then...
It's even worse going in late.
Oh, yeah. Especially with martial arts.
I do that all the time where I'm being like, you're in the car being like, okay, 6 more minutes. And you're like, it's actually better if you get in there and no one's even like started the class, so you can kind of melt into the back.
Yes.
But when you come in late, they go, fuck.
Yeah. Do you do martial arts?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm and like big. We'll get more into this. Big MMA fan.
Yeah.
Do box to train.
Right. Where?
Like just like locally.
Okay.
Nothing
Right,
crazy.
okay.
Just to get like fitter.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
like
Amazing.
I love the sport. Would love to learn more about it. And like was really into MMA, and there was like I had a thought I was going to go and do some jiu-jitsu classes and stuff, and kind of the same thing that you're talking about there, just like the anxiety kind of. I was like, I can't do this. I've made too many excuses why I don't do it. But I have a couple of mates that do it, and they were like, your long limbs would be so great. You'd be sinking in.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh my God. Yeah. You're so tall.
I'm going.
Yeah.
Maybe this is the catalyst.
Well.
Maybe this is the catalyst for it. I just want to kick someone in the head at some point.
Yeah. It's really lots of fun.
I don't have the hips. I don't have the hip mobility right now.
You will. It will come. It's all practice.
And then the more you watch it, the more you're like, Jesus, there's so much like in this. And but the answer is no. But I want to do it more.
Amazing. You should.
Continue.
So basically, I started, and then I was like, wow, this is awful. You know, I was like really overweight. I was really unfit. I was literally hungover going into the class. And I was just like, this is the weirdest thing. Like, what the hell are they all doing here? And
someone's trying to snap your arm.
Like I was like, at the time, because it was my first class, it was like even just shrimping, which is like a kind of a warm-up exercise that you do at start jiu-jitsu, and you kind of use it all the time in jiu-jitsu when you're trying to frame and different things. But I was like, this is the worst thing ever. Why did I come? But then I got home and I was like, actually, I'm intrigued. So I went back the next Saturday.
So first class was enough for you to be like, okay, there's something to this.
Yeah, no, like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I was like, felt so embarrassed. I was humiliated.
Okay.
I was like, I was just like, this, I am so embarrassed. But I had come from a lifestyle of being well known in like our circles of music, and like, you know, I had gotten to this gym and no one knew who I was. No one knew anything about the music. No one knew anything about the band. And with the fallout of the band, there was a lot of talk around different circles, like what happened, like it's her fault, you know, like all these different things. And I was really ashamed, and I was really like embarrassed that like my life was being discussed at like tables and pubs and stuff. And I also had lost like who I thought were friends, you know, people that I used to drink with and stuff, that, you know, you're at that age in your 20s, you're delusional. You think these people are like good friends, but they're actually not. So yeah, I love that I went and people were like, oh, what's your name? And I was like, oh, it's Lydia, and no one knew anything. So it intrigued me to go back. And then I went twice a week, and then I was going 3 times a week. And then it was like 3-4 months later, and I was training 6 days a week. I had quit smoking. I had stopped taking like prescription drugs that I was illegally taking, like Xanax and whatever else you're taking because the session anxiety is too bad or whatever. Quit smoking, like literally just quit everything, and was like, I'm obsessed with this new life that I have. And it was just the weirdest transition where like all the bad people just left. They just like dissolved.
People think you're losing your mind. They're like,
totally, like, you know, so I remember someone saying to me like, you know, what's your deal with all this like Zen shit lately? And I was like, oh, I'm going to the gym and exercising. Okay, yeah,
what's
Zen
this deal
shit.
that you want to suddenly feel good?
Yeah, imagine like trying to be
a
better version of yourself. Like, how dare you?
Where's my friend that bankrolled the session for me? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But this is why people get so offended by you like changing in that sort of manner, is because you just remind them of everything they're not doing, and it's way more comfortable for them to just like keep you in that little cage. And this is the version of you that I know, so stay that way.
Yeah,
you
don't
know?
change, because I definitely don't want to. And if you do, like, I lose you. I get that.
Exactly. So that led on to jiu-jitsu, competing, like knowing about martial arts, like going to boxing shows, MMA shows. And then I got an invitation to do a job in the 3 Arena. And it was for a MMA promotion called BAMA, which is now Bellator Europe.
That's mad. So you got to slow it down slightly. How did you go from, I'm a big jiu-jitsu, like totally into it, big enthusiast for jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. You then start, like, obviously, was there any interest in boxing and MMA and striking in general before that?
No.
And how did that transition kind of start? Were you like, I want to go and start watching, you know, some boxing matches and stuff like that?
So my brother was had always done boxing, but I never really paid attention to like, you know, took an interest in that. And
shadowboxing in the kitchen a lot, like that.
Yeah. I was like, what an idiot. Yeah. And then he moved to Australia and he had a few MMA fights, and I was like, oh, MMA. So I was aware of it. And then obviously jiu-jitsu. And actually when I was in the band, all the guys were mad for the UFC, but this is like old school UFC, like the golden days. UFC. Yeah, like legit, like, you know, and yeah, like Chuck Liddell, like absolute legend. He was
what a time.
He was an icon of the sport at that time, still is though. But so I had an idea of it, and then the jiu-jitsu and everything just started kind of coming together. I had started training with a girl called Lindsay Doyle, who has a company called Female Fight Nutritionist, basically does nutrition for women that fight. And she was an ex kickboxing world champion. So she was like, oh, there's this like local kickboxing thing on. Do you want to come with me? And I was like, yeah, cool. And then I went and I was like, oh, this is really cool. I love this vibe. And I'd never been to anything like that before.
That's very different to like a jiu-jitsu tournament, probably.
Oh yeah, totally. Like, you know,
of it all, spectacle of it all.
It was K1 and pro kickboxing. So it was like, you know, I mean,
K1's fucking serious.
K1 is serious, but we go to a pro Muay Thai show and then you really know you're at a fight. Do you know what I mean? Like when
blood on everyone's legs.
There's literally an elbow like in the head.
I brought my son with me.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? So I was just like, oh, this is really cool. And it was like in this like, you know, north side Dublin, like, you know, community centre, and, you know, there's people drinking out of cans, and then there was like kids, and it was just brilliant. I was just like, this is deadly. And then I just started like going with people that I met in jiu-jitsu to like, oh, there's this fight on or this fight on, and I just used to go to that. But then that led on to someone going like, oh, I was doing social media, so my like kind of day job at the time was like social media digital marketing, and someone went, oh, I'm working for this like Bama crowd and they need someone to sort of do like a bit of social media and different things, like would you be up for it? So I was like, yeah, 100%. Like, you don't get paid. I was like, I don't care. So I went, and for that fight week I was doing like coordination, so like getting the fighters to the hotel, getting to the interviews, you know, just kind of like helping out, like dropping off posters, sorting tickets out for people, all those kind of different things. And now I realize that I was doing somebody else's job who was getting paid for it, but they just had me as a little runaround. But I didn't care because I was like,
I'm hungry again.
Yeah, like literally, I was like, yes, I'm going to run and get
I'm
you.
just sitting here.
But it was such good, like the learning that I learned from it, and you know, the kind of experience was amazing. And I was backstage in the 3 Arena, and someone was saying like, you know, oh, can you get a few videos or you can do something for social? And I remember like this, like such a moment where I was like walking down the corridor in the 3 Arena, and like, if you've ever been backstage at the 3 Arena, and there's like,
I have.
Have you? Okay, what was it for?
I don't want to say. My
like
dad,
Miley Cyrus or something?
No, it's worse. My stepmom was good mates with like Louis Walsh and stuff, so they got us backstage for Westlife.
Real royalty.
Yeah, big stuff. I do remember, like when you're backstage and there's different doors either side for like dressing and stuff. Yeah.
So I was like walking down this corridor, and like, you know, on this door to the left there was someone warming up. On the next door, next dressing room, was like someone hysterically crying with their team with like a sliced eye. Then across the thing was like someone like popping champagne, and there was just all this emotion and energy in every single room. And I was like, what? I was like, what is this about? It was just the most, I was like, how does no one see this? And then I went and I looked at like, you know, who's documenting this. Then I came across like a few different post-fight interviews and stuff. And I was like, no. This doesn't capture fight sports. Like, this doesn't capture the energy and the emotion that goes into professional fighting. And then that was when it started. That was the love affair and the, right, it's going to be me. I'm going to document it.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I've actually brought back to, hold on one second. We have 5 more minutes for this stuff. Very quickly, I shot a behind the scenes like documentary in Spain for these 2 MMA fighters that I met over there. And they did it in the back of this like Coliseum, basically, like it was like a smaller show, like a regional show.
Okay.
And as you said, basically, no one obviously saw it in the front and the backstage. Like 2 of the heavyweight, 2 of the main event started fighting backstage, and there's like beating the shit out of each other. And then there's like the two of the events get like cancelled last minute. One of the guys gets cut. The guy that we're with, who was supposed to be one of the first amateur fights, gets pushed to the last fight after the main event because of like TV times and stuff. And the whole period backstage, that was kind of my first experience being backstage for the whole event like that. And I was sitting there, we must have been there 8 hours. And I was sitting there being like, this is the coolest thing. Yeah. You're going to go out and like, they're warming up backstage. And then you hear, even when we were walking out, we had to walk past the guy who our lad was fighting. And he was like, I'll see you out there, pussy. Like all this kind of shit in the way. I was like, I'm not doing anything.
Oh man, I love it.
Fuck you, man. Yeah, but even the whole thing, it was infectious. And I can see how people, imagine being the main event of a card and the buzz you'd get around of people to come and see you.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
But
I can see
it's not like anything that you can relate. You can't, there's no parallel to it in anything else in life. No. I mean, even to be in a gym training alongside someone who was training for a fight. I mean, that experience is, and at the time with training jiu-jitsu, I went on to train Muay Thai then as well. And, in that time period, I didn't realize how much that training could go on to then help me within the work and like having an understanding for and an empathy and a compassion for the fighters. And I think that's why the interviews and the work that I done with Fight Connect TV was so,
If you see, firstly, it's crazy to think that like if you hadn't gone to that jiu-jitsu class, none of this probably would have happened.
Divine intervention. That's the
Isn't
only
that mad?
It's the only explanation for it.
Your
100%.
whole career goes in a completely different direction. You change your whole life because you went to that jiu-jitsu class that you nearly didn't go to.
Yeah, 100%.
That's a nice way to finish the first half, I think, and then we'll continue on from there.
Stunning.
Lovely. Hello, everyone. Welcome back for part 2. Okay, so we understand now how you got into the position you are. Where in that does like Fight Connect TV and like the podcast start? Like, are you just doing presenting work for a long period?
The Fight Connect TV was kind of event stuff. So it was like going around to different events, covering the shows, doing the post-fight interviews. And then there was like a wild period of like 3-4 years where I just done that every single weekend in Ireland, all the regional shows, all the amateur shows, all the kids shows, definitely put in the legwork. And then I was like, okay, I've been doing this for 3-4 years and I'm paying to do it. I have to.
3 or 4 years you were doing it for?
Oh yeah, every single weekend. So I'd finish work at 5 o'clock and I'd run home. I'd like get everything packed, everything ready. I'd go to train on Saturday morning and then I'd go jump in the car. Actually, there's a cut woman called Jessica Isaacson, and she used to be like, I'm working this show, and I used to get in their car and we'd go up like literally to Sligo for like a kids amateur show.
So you were flat out for that period?
Flat out.
Loving it though?
Like obsessed.
Okay, great.
Yeah, like absolutely delighted. Okay. And my belief still is that, that was the right thing to do because I learned invaluable lessons along that time. But then I was like, okay, I need to like figure out what I'm going to do. I can't do this forever. It's not sustainable. So it was all about sort of like, trying to make a business model out of Fight Connect TV, kind of like structuring it properly. And the big goal was to, the end goal was always for it to be a TV channel, like the way Oprah went and had like the OWN network. Like I was like, Fight Connect TV, that's exactly it. So that was the sort of goal that I was always sort of attaining for. So whether it was sponsors and just growing and different things. And then there was just loads of different opportunities then that kind of presented themselves as a result of doing it. Like Virgin Media were like, oh, we need someone to discuss some boxing stuff. So that meant I was on like regional TV. Then from that, someone had seen me and was like, oh, there's this show called The Elaine Show.
I saw you on this. So different.
Literally, so different. I was like, I just have to really just go deep within and just like find that part of myself that is perfect for this show. But, the producer, Sinead Dalton, she's no longer at Virgin Media anymore. She's with Evoke.ie now. But she was like, like fair play to her as a producer. She was like, I see something in you that will work so well on this show. And, what a learning curve to be, weekly, like on live TV, seeing the TV studio, how it's set up, how the presenters are, being on a panel.
Now, is this kind of like a, give me an equivalent show that this would be like that's on now?
Loose Women.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
okay.
so it's Loose Women.
So you're coming on.
It's the Irish version of Loose Women.
You're coming on as like, is it on those shows? Is it's all like just personality, or do they try to get like different people from like different industries?
So
to kind of all give
they
opinions?
get like conflicting personalities to come on.
You like debating people and stuff like that?
Not at the start, but towards the end, I was like, you know, I really felt that it was important for me to like air my views on certain things, and it's actually not an easy thing to do when, you know, you're the 1% that's thinking different to the panel.
Do they want that? The producers probably.
The producers do
well.
want that. Yeah.
So they can't. Were they able to like say to you, "We'd like you can stand up for yourself," or do they need to be like, "You just do your whatever you're comfortable doing"? Like it's that dance they're trying to do.
You get the topics before you go on, and you have an idea of what you're going to speak about, and then you'll be in the green room before, and the producer or maybe the presenter or whoever's kind of curating the day will be like, you know, so we're going to talk about XYZ, or you're getting your makeup done and someone's like, so we're going to talk about XYZ, like, you know, what are your thoughts on that? And you kind of go, yeah, oh my God, like, don't agree with that, or, you know, oh my God, I'm waiting to tell you this. And then they're like, oh yeah, brilliant, say that. Or it's like, that won't work, don't mention that. So we don't want to talk about that, you know?
Are they having you on as like, from like your music career? Or did they see a lot of your fight stuff that you were doing? And
yeah, no,
like,
the music stuff was just no one remembers me from that.
It's mad that like it seems like the biggest thing at the time, and now like they have you on as like a presenter kind of thing. As like, excellent.
Yeah. So that was sort of that part. Then there was loads of like things with Joe.ie and stuff, like different opportunities that had come up through the Fight Connect TV stuff. So what I found was that mainstream media was like, we really like you. And we think you're great on camera, but we need...
What are these conversations for me? I'm a delight.
They'll come.
I'm a delight. No, kidding.
But they were like, you know, I think it was the fight element that were like, oh, she's really cool and alternative, but they didn't want to... It's such a niche thing, or at that time it was such a niche thing that it was kind of like, you know, you're great, but we'll just kind of sell you on this other thing, which was just your personality and whatever it might be. So I was like, look, I'll just go, you know, the work is the work, you know, you just take it wherever you can. And then I was doing a show for Joe.ie, and it was actually on boxing. We were having like a talk about Kate Taylor and all of her achievements. And it was, what do I say? What's the word when you're like auditioning for something? What's it called when you're auditioning for a TV show?
You do like a pilot, or you audition or a pilot?
It was a pilot, exactly it. It was a pilot for hosting a sports show with Joe.ie. And I was like, this is it. This is the moment. I can feel it.
I love sports.
Love sports.
I'm so bubbly.
I didn't get it. I didn't get it. But they were really great. They were like, you're not going to get the presenter role, but we'll have you back as a speaking point or a guest on the show to talk about different things. But while I was there was a guy that was doing the sound for them. And he called me.
This guy.
Yeah, he called me, and a couple of days later, he was like, oh, I heard you didn't get the Joe job. But he was like, listen, I actually think that you should consider doing a podcast. And I have just started this podcast studio, and, you know, I'd love to get someone from a combat sports background in, because it's like, you know, Conor McGregor, and it's this whole thing right now. And I was like, yeah, okay, let's meet up and let's have a chat. So we had a chat, and I really liked his vision for what he kind of wanted to do. But then the more I thought about it, I was like, I don't want to be exclusive to combat sports. Like, I love hearing everybody's story. And I love that sort of like, you know, what have you done? Like, what have you made out of your life? No matter what your circumstance is, whatever it's happened, I want to hear about it. And I want to hear about your belief systems. I want to hear about your like everyday practices. I want to hear about you. And he was like, okay, look, cool, let's do it. So we created the First Exchange podcast. So I've done 2 seasons, and it's really good.
It's mad to think. I've 2 things to follow up on. First of all, you mentioned that you were covering boxing for like you were discussing Kate Taylor and stuff like that. So do you need to research and like watch a ton to like get yourself to a level of knowledge that you're comfortable to like give your opinion and know that you've like researched it enough? Because, you know, I just, because we can't go into it as much detail, it all seems very quick. Yeah. But obviously in that period, these are over like years, and you've had a chance to like develop and watch like obviously a ton of boxing and MMA and stuff. Like, do you consciously be like, I need to make sure I'm keeping up to date with like stuff so I know I'm on the ball when I'm on camera?
If I was talking about something specific, or specific. Like for obviously when Katie Taylor fought Chantel Cameron in the 3 Arena, a lot of the conversation was about her previous fight with Amanda Serrano. So I needed to find out about Amanda Serrano, where I probably don't have as much of a knowledge on her, because obviously it's the American boxing end.
You learn who Jake Paul is and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, all that stuff, you know. So it's like you learn about that stuff, but in terms of like knowing, you know, having an opinion on the fight, knowing who's the stronger you know, fighter in the fight, you know, who's the A side, who's the B side, all that stuff was all natural to me because it's my passion. It's like what I'm interested in. So I'm invested in it anyway. But for someone listening, they could be like, God, yeah, it's real quick. Like she just went boom, boom, boom. And I mean, this is 10 years, you know, so it's like, and I'm like, I missed my mark on all my goals. You know, it's very hard for me to look back and go like, oh yeah, you've achieved so much. And people say to me and I'm like, oh God, I wish people would just shut up saying stuff like that to me because I haven't done anything yet. You know, it's like, you know, but I'm learning to just...
You stop now, you've done it already.
I know, I'm learning to be like, okay, you know, take a moment, Lydia, you've done well.
So if we can kind of, if you could have a preference to cover like boxing, MMA, as you said, you want to keep it as broad as you can.
Yeah.
But is there a sport, if you had an option of the two, that you prefer to cover?
Well, when I started Fight Connect TV, it was called MMA Connect TV.
Okay.
So it was originally
you were originally all MMA.
It was originally
it's
all
mad because
MMA.
now you definitely cover like a good bit of boxing now as well.
Yeah, it's literally nearly all boxing,
Yeah.
but that's going to change. And back to MMA, back to my roots. Yeah, like the route to boxing was kind of, I had like sponsors in my ear. I had people that were like willing to invest, and they were invested in boxing. So they were like, you know, would you consider changing the title from MMA? And I was like, well, actually, I had been considering it because I was doing MMA Connect TV and then I was at boxing shows in Ireland.
So you leashed in.
And people were like, where are you from? And I'd say MMA Connect TV, and like, you know, old school boxing heads were like, MMA's a load of fucking shite. Can I swear on this podcast? Yeah. Yes. You know, they're like, it's a load of shite. Like, so I was like, it was giving a negative connotation, you know, when I was asking for interviews. So I decided to change the name to Fight Connect TV and do all fight sports. It just was more business savvy.
What's when you, yeah, like obviously, listen, if someone came in today and they were like, if Liquid Death comes in, they say dance, I'll dance. Let me look at the camera.
Death.
I'll dance as much as you want.
I hope people don't think I'm back on the drink because it's water.
Yeah, it's just good branding. We don't do alcohol here.
Mm-mm.
We do. Just not now.
Do you still drink?
It was like my younger days, like 17. I'm 29 now. I was 29 last week.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Are you a Libra?
I am.
Very balanced.
Yes. Yeah, interesting. Tell my missus. But I basically was a big drinker from like 15 on, the usual crack. And then I lived in Marbella for 2 years. The previous 2 years moved back here in May. And drinking just kind of slowed down when I kind of got my missus and that got more serious and all my mates kind of grew up a bit.
Yeah.
And just the partying just gets less appealing.
Yeah. Well, wait another 10 years and then you'll just be like, oh, okay, alcohol is just...
Oh no, I get hangovers now. I'm like, I would go, it's hard. Even, I'm not taking the piss. 3 beers. Yeah. I'll go out, I'll be like, geez, I feel a bit... Like I used to be, I was saying this to my missus, I used to have a shoulder, 6 cans for prees and then go out, no bother. And then go out and get, and they'd be like, all right, let's start drinking now. It's mental. And now that I'd be in a hospital.
Yeah.
So it's weird how that works. But yeah, as we were saying, there's a couple of specific things that I want to get into, like a couple of particular like boxing and MMA topics. But can we talk about the Ian Garry and Fury fight quickly?
We can indeed.
Do you want to talk about that?
Yes, sure, of course.
What were your impressions before I go into anything?
So I must mention I now have a radio show on Beat 102, 103, which is a radio station in the Southeast. And I'm the sports presenter there. So my show on Saturday is based around like all the sports that are happening. So on my show Saturday just gone, I was like, big night tonight, Fury and NGannou. You know, I was like, you know, this is a ridiculous fight, it's a money fight. It's the circus, but I'm all for the boys making like a ton of cash. And then I was like, but Tyson is just going to absolutely, you know, dance around the ring. He's going to play with him for a couple of rounds, and then everyone's going to go home delighted because they've got like 40 million in their back pockets. I literally sat. I think I opened my mouth through the whole fight. I was just gasping. I couldn't. I honestly, I still don't believe what I have seen. You know, I'm verging on conspiracy theories at this point where I was like, it was all a fix. Tyson had to do it for like some money reason, but no, that's not. He just really, really, he just did not take the, you know, he just believed his own hype, and that like he just thought that having an MMA fighter like Francis Ngannou, like, oh, he just cannot box. There's all the videos that Ngannou put out of him on pads with Mike Tyson and different people, and he was like, now we know he was obviously faking, like, you know, being bad on pads and stuff, and everyone was like, this guy is going to get absolutely like danced around and different things. But I think also in like knowing boxing, knowing Tyson, like, you know, having an awareness of how his mental health is a positive and also a negative in terms of fights. And we can really look at all the different fights that he's had and where his mind has been at and how his performance has been, you know, elevated or whatever because of that mindset. And I really feel like a big point that people aren't touching on is that I really do think this Netflix series had a negative impact on him and on his mental state. That Netflix series came out, everyone was like, oh, At Home with the Furies, can't wait to watch it. And he, like his wife Paris, I mean, and rightly so, she's an absolute saint. She's such a beautiful person.
She actually probably came across the best in the whole show. I thought she came across really well.
Well, this is the thing, you know, I think that the balance, he came off really, really bad. And it was like this talking point of like, you know, he was like the people, you know, the obviously the lineal champion, but also the people's king or prince or whatever title that they were giving him. And I really just don't think that he anticipated to get that much of a backlash. And it was then on the top of that was like, you know, he's a fake, he's a fraud, he's taking this Ngannou fight, he's all about the money, like he doesn't care about his legacy. Why doesn't he fight Anthony Joshua? Why doesn't he fight Usyk? You know, and I just think that he was like, oh, I don't need to train going into this Ngannou fight. I'm just gonna, you know, I'm the best that there has ever been. I just
knocked Deontay Wilder out.
Yeah,
the most dangerous puncher in history.
Come back up off the floor like that. And
this guy's in it, like MMA fighter. I've taken away all of his elements except boxing. I'm going to be able to school him.
Yeah.
Just talking about the Netflix documentary quickly. I had this conversation with my friends. What's the need for him to be like, looking back? So obviously he has serious anxiety. He's on like bipolar, like up and down, super. So who's making the call to be like, let's get Netflix in with a bunch of cameras and document everything? And for him to be like, obviously the money wise, like he's good and he's set and they've had those conversations. So it just, it blows my mind that there's no one in his corner being like, maybe this isn't the best thing. You know, the producers are going to be looking for like controversy where they can and like making, you know, the moments that make you don't look great. And it just seemed to me like such a, even when it came out, I was like, this is all making him look really bad. Even like the ups and downs and like, let's fly to here. No, let's cancel it. I hate you. I want to like it disappears for a couple of days. Like it all made him come across really badly. And it was just interesting to think who made the call to be like, let's do it.
They had done stuff previously before, like I think it was like an hour special, and they had done it with this lady called Demi. I can't remember what her surname is, but she kind of is known in the UK. She does little documentaries and different things. And on the back of it, it was the first time that fans really had seen Paris and had seen kind of how like magnificent she is. I mean, like she's visually stunning. She's like 7 kids, you know, she's married to like the most, you know, like the heavyweight lineal champion, you know, Tyson Fury. Like there'll never be anyone like him again, you know, never has been, never will be. And you know, she was just fascinating and she made really good TV. And then she got a job on Loose Women off the back of it. She done a load of book deals. She had a new book coming out. So it's literally, you know, it's somebody saying like, okay, there's something here. We can make a lot of money off this. You can make a lot of money off it. You know, it can raise up Paris's profile. It can raise up the Fury brand. And then for him, I think it's like, you know, let's give fans a real look at what it's like to be the heavyweight champion of the world, but also to have all these mental health issues. It'll only make you more relatable. It will only make you more blah, blah, blah. And then you're like, oh, this is a great deal. Yeah, let's do this.
I'm a massive like Tyson Fury fan in general. And like the whole Deontay Wilder saga from him being like, you know, like 28 stone, depressed, suicidal, all those things. And then for him to like knocked Deontay Wilder out twice. That's the most Cinderella story. I don't think he could have been at a higher point then. I think everyone was super inspired and he was the king in that moment. And it just seemed, even though Francis did amazing and completely outperformed what people thought, it looked, even the way he showed, I heard some people talking about the way the shape that Tyson was in when he showed up and stuff like that, that he wasn't, and like he doesn't typically look great anyway. But he did, the whole air of everything, even though he said otherwise, it all came across like he was just taking it too lightly. And I can't help but feel like this is a massive stain on his legacy. And this will be something that people will look back on. Like, I don't think people have even gauged like how outrageous it is for like an amateur fighter or someone who's never had an amateur or pro boxing match to go in and go 12 rounds and controversially, look, didn't win the fight, but in a lot of people's eyes, like dropped him, all those kind of things. Like that's such, it just, no one gave him a leg. Did you?
Well, it's mental to think that like Francis Ngannou is now ranked in the WBC. You know what I mean? He's in the top 10 of like, you know, boxing heavyweights. It's really, to think that there was no way that he was going to win that fight. You know, they were not going to let Francis Ngannou walk out with those belts. Like, it's just, he would literally have had to put Tyson on his back, and that count probably would have been a little bit more than 10. Get up. Like, get up. You're at 15, get up.
Bring out the Migos quickly.
To be honest, I really do feel that this is another way for Tyson Fury to come back and become, you know, the people's champion once again. Like, I mean, and all it does is it reinforces our love of boxing, because the absolute, like, you know, boxing as a whole right now is so bizarre. I mean, there's just so many different elements where, like, over the last 10 years that I've worked in this sport, I you know, I could have never predicted that we would be at like
what's going on right now. You know, crossover MMA boxing, like YouTube boxing. I mean, it really is an interesting time. And did the only thing I can hope is that I hope it doesn't be a catalyst for like a negative spiral for him to be like, I hope, like, originally I think he was supposed to, the Usyk fight was already signed and like due to happen, and now Tyson's saying it's going to be the new year, and like, they're saying February for it.
It was December 23rd.
And Usyk was in the ring being like, remember what you said?
Yeah.
So it's, do you think that fight happens next, and then we see what happens? And what do you think happens in that fight now based off what you just saw?
Do I think that fight happens? I mean, it depends on Tyson's mental health. That it's not about cuts, it's not about money, it's not about promoters, it's about his mental health, because I could easily see him just hermiting now for the next, like, however long and disappearing. Or he could literally get a fire underneath him and be like, let's make December 23rd happen. It won't, but
comes back ripped.
It will be February. I don't think we'll ever see that day, but I you know, in all the interviews of all the sound bites and everything with Tyson over the years, there was something about this one where I genuinely was concerned for him. You know, I was like, I really hope that he is okay, because even just his tone, his manner in all the post-fight stuff, even the fact that he agreed to do interviews with certain people that he trusts with that big black eye and different things, like, just shows it's not very him. But I do think the fight happens if he does come back, and there'll definitely be two of them, that's for sure. And I can't see Usyk winning this fight. I can't see it. And I know a lot of people are like, Francis Ngannou just blah, blah, blah. Like, people forget that Tyson Fury is the greatest heavyweight boxer of recent times. Like, I mean, his fight IQ, his, you know, shot selection, you know, for that size. And if you
footwork, like,
I mean, his footwork, everything. I mean, when you stand next to Tyson in real life, like, there's so many times I've been looking at him going like, how is he this big? I mean, he's like 6'7". He's absolutely massive.
6'9".
Is it 9? I'm only 5'4.5", so I'm like, they literally,
that's like, he'd be virtually like ducking in this room.
Yeah.
Like that kind of height.
Yeah.
How much credit do you give to Mike Tyson as the Ngannou coach, or where do you think the credit lies in his performance and doing that well?
No, I don't. I don't give Mike Tyson credit in this fight. I think probably it was a nice little edge for him, nice little to have that kind of voice and that, like, support. And, you know, Mike Tyson obviously is extremely well versed in the art of boxing, so he probably would have gone in and said like, and he throws a shot like this. And from Mike Tyson's Hot Boxing podcast, you can see how he breaks down fighters, and he's got a very intelligent view of how a fight will go or should go or did go. But I think that Francis Ngannou had a skill set that was probably just needed to be tweaked and fine-tuned a tiny little bit.
He fought so disciplined, kept and then did hurt him, didn't chase him down like he traditionally would, just swinging like a mad thing.
Yeah.
And then even like obviously then Tyson kind of felt his power, and like at no point Francis like panic and be like, I'm gonna start diving in.
Yeah. He
used the clinch really well and out muscled him in the clinch.
Yeah.
And then kept range and like kept his distance, and was just so it just I like, maybe I think his MMA coach is Dewey Cooper, is that his?
Yeah.
So there's got to be a ton of credit going in there, because the game planning and that's why I thought Mike might have had a lot to do with it, because he would have watched Tyson a lot, because the way they broke down how Tyson Fury fights and how they were going to operate to win the fight. It just, to go 12 rounds like that, it just, it really surprised me.
I probably think that if there was anything from Mike Tyson's corner, it would have been on how, the mental warfare probably of fighting Tyson Fury, because I think you can actually see it at a point just before the knockdown, or maybe it was around the knockdown. You can see it in Tyson's face where he was like, oh, okay, I could be in trouble here and I need to switch on now.
He hit him. I remember Tyson hit him with a couple of clean 1-2s, and Francis just like laughed at him.
Yeah, he was like, this is, but I mean, look at the size of Francis Ngannou.
I get kicked in the face. That's nothing. But I did. He landed a couple of really clean ones. I was almost being like, here we go. It's going to start. Tyson going to start wrapping up. Francis just ate it and looked back at him. I'd say Tyson was like, then he gets hit. He's like, geez, this is going to be interesting.
There's an age-old argument about like, who's the toughest? MMA fighters, Muay Thai fighters, boxers. There's durability in all the different sports, and there's a toughness in all of them. But I mean, with MMA, like, to be punched, to be taken down, to be elbowed, to be kneed, to be choked out, like, there's so many risks in 1 5-minute round or whatever. Whether the three rounds or 5 rounds or whatever it is. So I don't think you can underestimate anybody. I mean, you see when mismatches happen all the time in combat sports, and everyone goes to Twitter and they're like, oh, it's a mismatch and blah, 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 and this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, everybody is a risk, no matter how good or how bad someone is on a particular day, there's a risk. Anything can happen once you get into, the square circle, as they say, or, the octagon, whatever it is. And yeah, that's just, proof that Tyson his whole team should have really paid more attention and been more, just should have just fought a different fight. Yeah.
I love, all the interviews after, all his family are so different, but Shane, his brother Shane, always like keeps it almost too real.
Yeah.
And he will I always search out the interviews with him after a Tyson Fury fight, because he'll be like, wasn't good enough, and I think he lost, and you'll be like, great, like he's brutally honest about it. But even pretty much his whole family were like, geez, I didn't show up, we were kind of lucky to have it that way. What would you do next if you were Francis Ngannou and you have the PFL kind of a fight there? You've just gone 12 with Tyson Fury. People think you beat him. Well,
the PFL is on my vision board. I am after a
presenting.
after a presenting job with the PFL. So I'm hoping that I get to ask him in real life. But if I was the PFL, I'd probably be really clever, and I'd probably look at where it went wrong for Francis Ngannou in the UFC. Yep. And I would say, because they have it with Savannah Marshall and they have it with Clarissa Shields. Obviously, both world boxing champions in their own right. Savannah is now turning over to MMA, and Clarissa has already had a couple of MMA fights. So they had this, they're obviously going to bring them together, not only in boxing, but also in MMA. So it's a brilliant business decision. And I think that they should, open that door to Francis Ngannou and look at, we're in this weird world anyway, where everything is crossing over. We're seeing football people going in, taking fights. We're seeing, it's a mesh of everything. So I would be like, okay, let's see what we can build here. Can we do this again? Can we do boxing versus MMA? Can we get like someone from boxing into MMA to fight on the PFL? But I would be, giving him free rein to explore boxing. The only thing I will say about Francis Ngannou is, this happened because nobody knew what to expect from him. So he went in and shocked the world, right? I don't know if that happens again and a third time and a fourth time and a fifth time, because the more he fights, the more he gets figured out, the more he, you know, people are not going to underestimate him. So it's really difficult to know, you know, people, it's so fickle. You know, the world of combat sports, you know, fans is so fickle. Everyone is now writing off Tyson Fury, forgetting about everything that he's ever achieved. And they're like, oh, Francis Ngannou is the man. And, you know, he had a wonderful night. He had a really brilliant night. And, you know, I'd actually like to see him fight Anthony Joshua. If we're not going to see him fight Tyson, if AJ is not going to fight Tyson, which I don't think will happen anytime soon, you know, AJ has always spoken about how he wants to go back to Africa. He wants to like have this big stadium fight, you know, and the two, like, you know, their African heritage, you know, obviously both from Africa. Well, AJ's family, and then obviously Francis Ngannou is African. To have that spectacle, like, how good. I mean, I'm like, I want to go to Africa 100%. Make it happen. I want to be on that flight. But it would just be so good to have all, you know, Adesanya, all these people from the UFC coming to support him. Then everyone from the boxing world, you'd have Eddie Hearn involved, you'd have Matchroom involved. It'd be Matchroom meets the PFL. Like, I mean, it could be anything. So I think it's wide open for Francis Ngannou. When
you look at like what like Laura Sanko and stuff is doing in the UFC, are you like, I think she's brilliant.
She's so
I think she's brilliant.
Yeah, really and good.
I think her I actually, one of the big compliments I'd give the UFC is they seem to pull the right people.
Yeah.
Like Dominic Cruz, even Daniel Cormier. I was like, I don't think that's going to work. I was like, because I kind of grew up on the like loving John Jones, hating Daniel Cormier buzz, and I was kind of like, I was like, what's his thing going to be? Is he going to be like, and then I've honestly improved. They kept him, they let him be so authentic, which is great. I think, and that's kind of with Bisping the same thing. But like Paul Felder, I think was such an unbelievable call. And I didn't know his personality that well, but I think he's great. Yeah, no, Laura Sanko is amazing. And, you know, it's long overdue that a big organization like that put a woman front and center and have enough confidence to know that she knows what she's talking about and she can carry not only the brand, but she can be interesting and informative for the fan that's at home. And you're always concerned when, you know, TV broadcasters in whatever capacity it is, when they take a risk. Now I say risk, okay? Like, so we're all like high risk, you know, because it got said to me before, you don't want to have too much energy because you don't want to seem like you're over eager. And you don't want to, because, you know, that's for a male viewer, because male viewers, you know, the market research, they don't enjoy an over-eager female pundit or broadcaster, whatever it is. And then women watching women, you know, although it's growing and women are tuning in to watch more women and listen to more women, it's society and whatever reasoning for it, you know, men and women usually will choose to tune into the man, and you know the man knows best, or you know whatever it might be. I think she's like, she could very well now go on and do like 10, 15, 20 years on like the panel now if she hands it right. And I thought even you kind of saw it when she did, is it the Contender series that she did, and she was great on that, and that show blew up. So I'm sure like Dana was aware of those things. Two closer to home questions. One, I saw that you had an interview with Ian Garry on your podcast, and I didn't get a chance to look the whole way through it, but he's been on our podcast before, chat team before, lovely guy. Yeah. And what period of time in his career did you interview him at? Oh God. Was it 4 years ago? He wasn't even a pro when I. Oh shit! Like, he was straight up amateur. I used to interview him when he was an amateur. Yeah. And okay. He used to tell, like, he was Ian Garry as we know him now back then, and you know, people used to say like, see that fella, he thinks he's Conor McGregor, and I was like, I don't know, I kind of believe him. And then they were like, you're just naive, you're just gullible. I was like, no. Over the last 10 years, if I had €1 for every male that has come to me, and it's never women, it's always men that have come to me and gone, I'm going to be the next Conor McGregor, I'm going to be a world champion, I'm going to do this, I would have a couple of houses and an apartment in New York. Oh, wait, and they did it, you said, or that told you? They don't. Sorry, they took so much shite. Like, how many McGregors have you? No, I'm like, they took so much shite, and I'm going to be this and I'm going to be that, and I'm the best ever. And then I'm like, well, you might want to put that bag away
and get out of the pub if that is the case, you know,
hold on a second.
Literally.
I need to live.
Yeah, like, you know what I mean? It's just like shy talking. And, or if you put that much energy into training as you do your Instagram posts, you probably would be. But there's certain fighters who you meet along the way and you just go, they've got that X factor. There's a combination of elements that you just feel that they're going to go on and do something great.
And he had that.
He had it. Paul Hughes had it. Reece McKee had it.
Yeah.
You know, all these guys who are now like
huge.
Making their way 100%.
What do you make of his kind of rise in the UFC and like what he's turned into as a fighter and like his kind of, I guess, how he's been perceived now and with the UFC and stuff like that?
I mean, I'm really proud of him, to be honest, because first and foremost, he's my friend and his wife is a very good friend to me. And yeah, like I care about them and I want them to do well because I like them, you know, and I'm close to them. But to see him achieve this is like, I mean, it's almost like being in a simulation. I'm like literally like, what? How has this happened? And it has happened so quickly and so flawlessly and exactly as he has predicted. And he's, you know, said, this is what I'm going to do. This is my plan. This is how it's going to go. And, you know, and he, you know, Ian is very sweet and he's very, you know, caring and he's considerate and he's like, you know, yeah, he's an MMA fighter.
Seems like he's brought up very well and all those kind of things. Like,
of course,
like he comes across great.
He's a really, really nice guy. And sometimes it's hard to like look online on Twitter and maybe people talking bad about him on Twitter or maybe talking bad about his wife. And you're literally sitting there with like, you know, I don't do it anymore, but I've learned to like just block or delete or mute or whatever it is so that I don't see it anymore. But it's difficult to like, you know, read shit about people that you're friends with and know that it's not true, or know that they're not being you know, represented properly or people have a bad idea of him. But I think that's shifting now. I think it was always going to be really difficult for him to create his own path and to emerge as Ian Garry on the back of Conor, you know, and he's been really, not that it's clever or contrived or anything, but you know, he's not trying to be Conor and he's very vocal about his, you know, the inspiration behind Conor.
I think he toes the line really well between like, he's a huge influence of mine, but like I'm Ian Garry. I think he's towed that line well.
Yeah. And I think Conor has been really generous in his like, you know, online support of Ian. And some people might listen to that or hear that and go, well, of course, because they're both Irish. Of course he's going to show his support, but that's not how it works, you know. And unfortunately, there's loads of stuff that go on behind the scenes in any industry, any business, anything. And it's not all as what people think it to be, you know. So I thought that it was really, really good-hearted and kind of Conor to be like, you know, he's one of our own. Let's get behind him. Let's support him and let's do to him what you've done to me.
I think even the huge advantage for Ian is he's so like beautiful to watch fight.
Yeah.
He really is. Like of all the people, even it sounds, when I talk to anyone about it, they're like, oh, he's Irish, obviously.
Yeah.
Like like I said, watch him fight. Particularly the was it Jeff Neal who pulled out or Neil Magny who pulled? He fought Neil Magny.
Yeah.
If you watch the way he chews up that leg and like controls distance and everything like that, I thought he looks so good. Yeah. And now the fact that he's starting to take stuff on like short notice and the kind of things Conor was kind of made famous for, or any fighters made famous for. I think this 2024 could be a huge year for him now, where he can fight, you know, a couple of top 10 guys, and then we're talking about like Leon Edwards, like Colby Covington and stuff like that. Do you see him holding a belt at some point?
Ian?
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
That's
100%.
unreal.
Yeah, it really is. And like, you know, the obviously Reece had signed with the UFC before Ian and was given as his
what
first
an absolute
fight.
beast to be like,
you know,
let's just do
so
it.
it's like at the time we were all like, this guy is good, and now we know how good he's turned out to be. So he got a rough deal. And the thing with the UFC, and it's no secret, I mean, everyone knows how the UFC operates. And it's that thing of when we call you,
Be ready.
Be ready. You don't get to dictate the terms. You don't get to dictate the weight. You don't get to dictate this. This is where we'll fit you in. And you either take it, you take the shot, and it works out for you.
Drickus now, like.
Yeah, or it doesn't, and you go back to, you know, maybe you retire.
We'll call you.
Maybe, you know, or maybe you don't get called. There is that risk as well. And, you know, you see fighters all the time calling for the UFC. I'm ready. And it's like, you really best be ready when they give you the call, because if you don't make like an instant impact when you get there, not only for the UFC, but for fans as well, it makes it even harder to like be on that trajectory. So when Irish fighters get signed to the UFC and they lose on their first fight, like it's so heartbreaking. That, because you know how hard they're going to have to fight again, and you know that they're going to get worse fights for them, and you know that they're not going to be not protected, but you know, Ian will now find himself in a position where the UFC will kind of stand back and go, okay, let's hear it from you. What do you want? You know, the same way that it worked for Conor.
Speaking, two last things. One, very quickly, you just spoke about coming in like short notice, taking the opportunity when it comes to you.
Yeah.
We just saw Volkanovski to do that.
Yeah.
Take an opportunity last minute. We kind of saw, or at least I saw the kind of, when we saw his shape after, when he was in the cage, when he first came in, it was like evident that he clearly wasn't like fight ready, and he said that himself.
Yeah.
But like that's one of those moments where now he said it himself, he's probably not fighting for the 55 belt for a while, and it's kind of that toss up where you take the opportunity where it could work out for you, and then, you know, if it doesn't work out, we'll figure it out. But I think in that moment, do you think that Alex should have taken that fight? Do you think it was a good opportunity for him?
I mean, because I have an opinion on this, right? But I'm only having an opinion on it because we're on a podcast and I'm talking about it.
There's only 3 people listening, so it's all good. Hi, Mom.
Because I'm always really like, you know, people always ask me like, do you think this person should have this? At the end of the day, I don't know, because I you know, I can only have an opinion of what they should have done.
Let's put a blanket over the top of this. Neither of us know.
You know,
this is our opinion.
I can't speak for any fighter, you know, and I say that because I interview so many of them, and I know how annoyed they get when interviewers or broadcasters talk about like what they should or shouldn't do, or what they didn't do, and they're always like,
you don't know shit.
And they're like,
this all comes with the most unseen amount of respect, particularly from you, like knowing how long you put into it. You obviously know exactly what these guys like go through, and you see
I'm just damage controlling for when I see him, and then
I don't think Alex
okay.
Volkanovski is watching the Power Pod. Why'd you commented under?
I'll be like, I'm so sorry, really, I'm sorry. But my life motto is just say yes. Always say yes, but it's one of those things where it's so hard to pinpoint whether it should have been the right decision because of the risk factor in that at that level in the UFC. But I think he was right to take the fight, and I think it just opens up more of a conversation now about like the direction that he goes in, and also his age. So it's different if you're 22 and you're in the UFC and you're, you know, whatever. So his age is a factor, you know, the stage of where he's at in his career. And also we know we don't have to be told about how the UFC view turn downs. And if you turn down fights, I mean, look at Brendan Loughnane, who signed to the PFL. Obviously people are like, how did, you know, the UFC not sign him? And, you know, it's out there why he turned down whatever and why he wasn't signed to the UFC. And he will probably never get to the UFC. Now he's okay because he's at the PFL and he's making an absolute mint over there, and he's at the top of the food chain in the PFL.
It's probably like your grand lads. I'm good for 6 and 6.
But I do feel bad for those fighters because they really do have the UFC as the pinnacle in the sport. You know, that's where they want to be. They want to hold a UFC title, and that's, you know, what they've grown up kind of emulating. But now obviously there's other promotions that are coming up that can, you know, maybe not match that brand value just yet, but they've made it really worthwhile for the fighters in terms of financially, in terms of like the broadcasters that they're going on to now be with, or sponsors and platforms and all that. So it's a really good time.
Final question.
Okay.
You kind of mentioned them already. We're hearing now that like Conor's return is probably going to be in like 2024. We're hoping it's going to be early 2024. I don't want you to just give your opinion. If you could predict what 2024 looks like for Conor McGregor in an ideal world, what do you think would happen?
In an ideal world, I have toyed with the idea of whether I want to see Conor back.
Sure.
Mainly because I'm so like terrified of him not achieving what he wants to achieve when he gets back in there, and how that would affect him, how that would affect the legacy that, you know, he's built up for himself, Irish MMA. But that's not going to happen. He is going to come back. So I don't know. I don't like to say 1 or 2 warm-up fights, tune-in fights, you know, see how, you know, but...
He doesn't know the word.
I mean, yeah, you don't know. Like, I mean, they literally could be like, okay, March, he's in for a title fight, you know. It could be at 190. You know, we literally don't know what's going to happen.
Do you like the Chandler fight?
Yeah. I think, like, they've created a little bit of a needle now where, you know... but the thing about Conor is it doesn't matter if he's fighting, you know, the security guards at the arena. They're going to make it a huge spectacle. He's going to build it. He's going to sell it. You know, I just hope that it's, and I don't want to say it's his time to retire. Absolutely not. Nothing like that. But, you know, it's the quintessential, you know, professional fighter thing we see all the time. We saw it with Ricky Hatton, we saw it with Mike Tyson, we saw it with Muhammad Ali.
It's rare you don't get to see it. Most of them go out that way.
It goes the other end, and it, like, the legacy becomes tainted. And what I don't like about it is that fans who are casual, who really don't know the ins and out of this industry and the pressures and all the things that go with it, they just then mark off or box off that fight as, wasn't that good, not that great. And it's really frustrating.
Everyone wants a George St. Pierre finish.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'll come back. Yeah. I'll just grab a belt and I'll be
look at George St. Pierre now. Like, I mean, if you follow him on Instagram, even, like, I mean, even, you know, his lifestyle now at, like, what is he, like 50 or something?
He keeps it so tight.
You know, he's just like, it's just stunning. It's just,
and his own mentality around fighting, and like he did it for the lifestyle. But just when he goes out the way, and then you see like BJ Penn and stuff like that, and you're like, there's the other side of the coin as well.
Yeah.
Well, I think he comes back, knocks out Chandler and knocks out Islam, and Champ goes out.
That was the answer that I meant to give.
Imagine. No, I think there's poetry in Islam and Conor after the Khabib stuff, and that would be that potentially could be a bigger fight than Khabib if things went the right way. But thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
We went a little bit over time. I apologize, but I really enjoyed that conversation.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
Guys, follow Fight Connect TV. Listen to the First Exchange. Hopefully we see you on the PFL.
Yeah.
Hopefully we see you interviewing Francis.
I'm going to send this interview to the bosses. So, like, I'll be like, okay,
listen, cool. If you need a quirky back guy,
they are back December 8th in the 3 Arena for anyone that's interested.
I saw that. I actually only heard an ad for it today. Yeah, unbelievable. Right. Thanks so much for joining me. So much. Guys, like, subscribe, all those things. See you in the next one. Peace.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
So much.
No problem.
That was great.